A House on Shifting Sand, a memoir from Dale P. Growing up in the vibrant, chaotic culture of the 1960s and 1970s, I faced a profound emotional void. While the suburbs of Los Angeles offered an endless landscape of parties and concerts to explore, they also provided easy access to the things I craved most. In a world where I felt utterly alone, I found a friend in drugs and alcohol. This is the story of how a childhood built on the shifting sand of a detached mother and a lost, abusive father led me down a path of addiction and a desperate, often dangerous, search for connection. My world was already unstable, but its foundation truly cracked the day my father died. The day the world went silent. My home life was a paradox. It was ruled by an abusive father who was, at the same time, the only person who ever made me feel unique and unconditionally loved. He was my protector. My mother, in stark contrast, was an emotionally distant figure, a constant presence who offered little in the way of comfort or affection. This was the complex and contradictory world I navigated every day, a world that was about to be shattered. I came home from school one afternoon to find everyone gathered in the living room. The atmosphere was so unsettling, as if something dreadful had happened. I saw tears streaming down my mother's face while my two older brothers wore fierce expressions of deep anger. They gestured for me to join them, and then the devastating news was delivered. Dad passed away today. In that moment, the world went silent, and the very ground beneath me felt like it was giving way. I was overcome with emotion, and tears began to stream down my face. My brothers, showing a strange kind of concern, advised me not to cry. For them, the death of our abusive father was a relief. I was deeply confused by their reaction. I could not help but wonder if I was mistaken for shedding tears. It was my mother who intervened, encouraging me to let my feelings out, a rare moment of engagement in a sea of detachment. But the truth was simple and overwhelming. I had just lost the only individual in the world who made me feel unique, who loved me without conditions, and who would go to any lengths to support me. With him gone, the shifting sand I had called a foundation completely gave way. I was left without my primary protector, adrift in a hostile world and forced to find new, more dangerous ways to survive. Forging a chemical anchor. With my father gone and no emotional support at home, I turned to external solutions for survival. I wish I could say I joined a gang and started drinking to be a rebel. The truth is much sadder. I was just looking for protection, for a place to belong. Living in a neighborhood with high levels of gang activity was tough, so I made the practical choice to join one to protect myself from their constant bullying. Our rituals often revolved around pimping a bottle of alcohol. Pimping is the term we used back in the day, when we would gather outside the liquor store and kindly ask someone to purchase alcohol for us. I vividly remember one night when we managed to get a bottle of vodka and orange juice. After we finished the mix, we sipped the vodka straight from the bottle. I was around 10 years old. The alcohol hit me like an anchor dropping in a stormy sea. A sudden, heavy stillness in the chaos of my life. I was incredibly intoxicated. When my mother arrived home from work, I was discovered unconscious in the backyard. Her reaction was not one of nurturing concern, but of harsh efficiency. Without hesitation, she promptly grabbed me and forcefully threw me, fully clothed, into the bathtub. My drug use began when I was 7 and continued until I was 15. Looking back, it is truly astonishing that my brain survived such relentless abuse. It was an epidemic of its time, a fact I wouldn't fully appreciate until years later. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that during that era, almost half of all high school students had used marijuana and 10% had tried a form of cocaine. Personally, I began experimenting with drugs during my grade school years, but thankfully, I managed to quit by the time I reached the end of junior high. These early experiences were not isolated incidents. They were the forging of what I would later understand as a heavy chemical anchor that would stunt my emotional growth and pull me toward even more complicated waters. The search for a mother. My unmet need for maternal affection became the driving force behind my relationships. This desperate search for an intimate bond I craved from my mother led me to Nikki Beverly. She was more than a love interest. She became the focal point of my search for a home, for a mother. I met her through a friend, and our first encounter was a playful but sexually charged greeting where my friend placed his face between her breasts as she shook them back and forth. Despite our age difference, she insisted on throwing me a big birthday party, complete with cake, presents, and games, a maternal gesture I had never experienced. Throughout the day, she hinted at a special gift she had for me. When the party finally ended, she led me to her room. Lying on her king-size waterbed felt disorienting, swaying from side to side and bobbing as if I were on a boat. The sight of her undressing, of her double-D breasts as I lay on my back, was extremely arousing. I was not new to intercourse, but I was new to her being on top. "Woot-hoo!" she yelled, swinging her arms in the air like a cowboy riding a bull. That night was one of the most pleasurable nights I have had in my life so far. I never wanted it to end, but our relationship was a tangle of conflicting desires. I wanted something real with Nikki, but I was afraid I wasn't mature enough. As my feelings grew, I began to question what I truly wanted from her. The realization was a quiet, persistent ache. Even though we were having an intimate relationship, I sometimes felt like I just wanted to have a mother instead. There were perfect moments, though. We saw some amazing concerts at the Long Beach Arena, seeing bands like Led Zeppelin, Humble Pie, James Gang, Robin Trower, and Kiss. I'd hide a bottle of whiskey in the leg of my boot, and we'd lose ourselves in the music. I remember a time we went to Disneyland for an outdoor show. The crowd was so packed she couldn't see, so I lifted her onto my shoulders just as the band began to sing "Joy to the World." You know, the one where Jeremiah was a bullfrog. With the stage lights flashing and the crowd cheering, it felt like everything I had ever wanted. But even in those perfect moments, I was beginning to see disturbing habits that revealed the deep instability of this surrogate connection. The cracks in the facade. The coping mechanisms I had so carefully constructed, both the substance use and the relationship with Nikki, began to fail. Their destructive nature became impossible to ignore, revealing the cracks in my fragile world and pushing me toward a crisis. My drug use escalated, bringing with it terrifying consequences. At 12 years old, I took my second hit of LSD, and it was a complete nightmare. I had a disturbing vision that I would never be able to see Susan, a girl I was infatuated with, ever again. I ran down the middle of the street screaming until my friends managed to calm me down. Later, there were reds, or downers. I witnessed a friend shooting them up and another driving across 4 lawns and hitting 2 parked cars. I even took some reds laced with heroin myself and went on a joyride in the Malibu canyons. Around age 14, I tried snorting cannabinol, a marijuana extract. One day I took so much that I collapsed onto the living room floor, completely paralyzed. My chemical anchor had finally become so heavy it dragged me to the bottom, pinning me to the floor. I was conscious, my senses picking up everything around me, but I was unable to move, a physical manifestation of my emotional state. This moment provided the most potent and chilling example of my mother's neglect. She came home and asked my brother what had happened. He told her I had snorted too much cannabinol. Her exchange was terrifyingly brief.
"Will he be okay?"
Yes.
"Oh, okay."
And with that, she proceeded to step over me and walk away. My mother's emotional detachment towards me was made very clear by this gesture. The more invisible I felt at home, the more desperately I looked for stability in Nikki. But that desperation only made her own cracks seem wider and more terrifying. I saw them in her love for scotch, how she would occasionally become unresponsive after a few drinks. I learned that she would sometimes bring Johns home to exchange sex for money.
She told me a story about how her son, who was even younger than I was, had been taken away from her because she was accused of sexual abuse and was now facing federal charges.
The cracks were appearing everywhere, in my mind from the drugs, in my family from my mother's neglect, and in the very foundation I had tried to build on Nikki. I was heading for a painful but necessary confrontation with my reality. The unraveling. The final betrayal was the culmination of all my fears of abandonment. The person I had cast as a maternal figure and the person I considered my closest friend were about to leave me utterly alone, causing the makeshift house I'd built to finally collapse. My internal turmoil was constant. I had started to notice how she acted more friendly and playful with other boys in the neighborhood than she did with me. I was caught in a painful dilemma. Should I be open and honest with her about my feelings, even if it means potentially losing her? Or should I perhaps just keep my feelings to myself and maintain the status quo? I reluctantly mustered the courage to tell her, with a sinking heart, that I no longer wanted a sexual relationship. Her response was not one of understanding, but of pure fury.
You dare to deny me sex? I am the one who will deny you sex.
I was completely caught off guard. Doubt crept in, and a wave of worry washed over me. I feared I had made a big mistake. The next day, she met my best friend, 16-year-old Josh Jenkins. They hit it off instantly. Their connection became sexual very quickly. That night, they slept together in her bedroom, causing me to sleep on the couch instead. Deep inside, an overwhelming sense of worry consumed me. I couldn't shake the feeling of being left out, betrayed, and abandoned by both Nikki and my closest friend. The situation left me utterly clueless on how I would possibly get through it all. And to make it all worse, to add insult to this profound injury, I had just moved in with her. I had no idea how I would survive the night, let alone what the next day would bring. To be continued.